since it's a little cooler than what it's going to be later, I'm going to do the deck profile now and get it out of the way so I don't have to do it. But we're going to be taking a look at the deck that I went undefeated last night with at my local OTS, and we had 4 rounds. So I went 4-0, and we had a total of 22 players. So let's get into it, and let's talk about Ritual Light and Darkness Branded. Now, this is a variant that I've been wanting to play for quite some time, and it's definitely a really high skill ceiling deck where you have to do specific things to play around certain cards, especially with Mind Shuffle being able to be targeted if you don't have your Magician of Dark Chaos of Dark Destruction on your field, so there's that. But we are running one of each of the ritual monsters, one Magician of Dark Chaos, Black Chaos, and one Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Light and Darkness, because you really only need one. Sometimes I definitely think I should up this to 2, but realistically you only need 1 because there's many ways to recycle it back to hand and the deck. Now, they both have their effects on summon, being able to either banish a card your opponent controls or be able to target a spell in your graveyard to add it back from the graveyard to the hand. And then there are additional effects allowing you to either banish a monster on the field, or banish a card on the field, which is absolutely amazing, and targeting removal is always great. And then being able to increase attack by 15 if it battles and destroys a monster and then attacks again. Now, they're both unaffected unless your opponent targets them, and one of them says your spells and trap cards cannot be destroyed or banished, and while the other one says it cannot be destroyed by battle. So they both have their upsides to them. So before going into battle, you want to tag out to your Blackluster Soldier if you need to. Overall, I really do enjoy running 1-1, and I would definitely tinker around with 2 Magician overall. So after that, we have the 3 Black Chaos. This is another one of your cards that you definitely want to see going first as another Mind Shuffle target to summon, because it cannot be normal summoned or set and must be special summoned by its effect, or ignoring the summoning condition with Mind Shuffle by returning a warrior or spellcaster ritual monster from your hand or graveyard to your deck. And while you have Light and Darkness ritual itself in the graveyard, it's unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, and it also has the other effect that you could banish 2 cards your opponent controls, which comes up so much that removing 2 cards that are important to the opponent is absolutely crucial. Banishing back row, or just being able to banish monsters on their field. Honestly, all of it's still really powerful. After that, we have the star of the show, being Griffo. This card I run 3 of because, well, it's one of the best starters, being able to discard itself to either prevent the next damage to be 0, or just be able to place a spell or trap card that mentions Light or Darkness ritual from your deck face down, and it can be activated that turn. And also, if you ritual summon, you can banish this, or you could use this card as the full material, as Ritual Light and Darkness also lets you banish monsters from the graveyard. Overall, this is a really good card, and I definitely think that this is going to be one that a lot of players are going to be needing if they want to run the Splash Engine for this deck. And then after that, we have 2 Skull Archfiend of Chaos. This allows you to target up to 3 cards total in either player's graveyard, including a card that mentions Light and Darkness Ritual. Put them to the bottom of the deck and special summon this card. And then also, if it is sent to the graveyard, you can use the effect to send a ritual spell from your deck to the grave to add a monster that is mentioned, or mentions that, a ritual monster that mentions that ritual spell. So it's really good just to get your big tower monsters out, but also if you run things like Mitsurugi, you can send their ritual spell to the grave, so you can search out any of your Mitsurugi ritual monsters. Overall, I really like 2, and I would not play more or less. And then finally, the one of that made this card, or this deck, 41 cards. I just had to play the 1 Celtic Mystic, because on normal or special summon, you could reveal your hand to your opponent to draw 3 and discard 2, which is absolutely crazy to think about, that this card has Graceful Charity. And the other effect that barely comes up is that you could tribute this card to special summon 1 ritual monster from your hand, which honestly does come up in certain situations. But if you're going first, most of the time, this is just going to be on the field. Or if you have this and you have the Skull Archfiend in the graveyard, you can go into something like a Chaos Angel. But overall, Celtic Mystic really put in some work being able to draw 3 cards to fix the hand. There's one hand where I drew a copy of, I think it was Black Chaos in 2 Ragged, or it was something else with the 2 Ragged. So I knew what to discard because I had a 3rd Ragged in hand. Now after that, we have the small branded package of 2 Fallen of the White Dragon and the 1 Fallen of Albaz, because honestly, I really do like the 1 Albaz, 2 Fallen. since this gives you a way to summon out a way to get into Crimson King or other synchro monsters, which is good. And then just Fallen of Albaz just there for Rinbrum and any other plays, especially with the one Ecclesia, the Virtuous. So this is just your small package, and realistically is just there to get into the 3 Sword Soul Champion, or just get to any of your other synchro monsters like the Crimson King, like I said. And also being a tuner, you could just use this with Black Chaos like I did, just to go into something like a Chaos Angel. And then, of course, because we're running the Crimson King, we're going to be having the 1 Soul Resonator. Even though it takes up your normal summon, it just gets to your Griffo, and it does have better things over something like Crimson Call. I think that's the name of it, that just searches out a level 4 or lower Fiend monster, or adds a level 4 or lower Fiend monster from graveyard to hand, but if you control a Red Dragon Archfiend or a monster that mentions it, you can just add it from your deck to your hand instead. But this is just a little better because you could just normal summon it and just be able to search Griffo directly. And then for the hand traps, I'm only running the 3 Molcharmi Fulos because it's the best hand trap right now. Also, on top of that, we have the 3 Vidralis Harmonia. Now, Harmonia is a really powerful card. It does come up in certain situations, which is nice, and also it works with Mind Shuffle that you can return it back to your hand to summon out one of your level 8s literally for free, which is nice. So you have another Harmonia for the following turn. Also, Molcharmi Fulos, just being able to draw cards every time your opponent specials from the deck or extra deck, is absolutely great. Now, in my honest opinion, you don't really... The Harmonia is optional, in my honest opinion. I just ran it because it has a lot of good use cases currently. And even though it's in the new Winners Pack, I could definitely see it getting reprinted very quickly down the line because it's one of the more high-demand cards. So overall, those are the most of the monsters, but there's one monster that I haven't talked about yet. And that happens to be 2 copies of Farah, the Primordial Goddess. Now, Farah the Primordial Goddess is a really powerful card because while she's in your hand, you can reveal this card and a spell or trap card to make it unrespondable by either player, so neither player can respond to this card's activation. So being able to use it with Ragged or even your ritual spell, your opponent is going to have a rough time trying to counteract what you're going to do. And unbranded, you could reveal this card with Branded Fusion, so they cannot ash your Branded Fusion, or you could do it with Branded and High Spirits if you want to protect that, because this card is absolutely amazing with Branded and High Spirits, or even any of your spell and trap cards that send to the graveyard. Now, when this card is sent to the graveyard by a spell or trap effect, like Mind Shuffle, Branded and High Spirits, or even your Light and Darkness Ritual, you can activate her effect to special summon her back to the field, and then you use her effect when she's summoned to take control of a monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Last night, this came up where I took a Chaos Angel that was only made by Darks, and that completely just ended the game on the spot. Overall, I really do like 2, and it's definitely a card that a lot of players really undervalue, but I definitely see this card being played more and more going in the future, because I think in a lot of decks I'm going to be running at least a copy of this card if I have a very important spell card that I really want to resolve. Like if I play in Chimera, Chimera Fusion, or even if I just play other decks like Mitsurugi, you could just make it where you can do Ragged or Pre-Prep or your Mitsurugi Ritual, so they can't Solemn Accusation, Solemn Warning it. But overall, Farah is definitely a card that overperformed for me, and I definitely say that this is definitely worth it to run. Now, for the actual spells and traps, we have the 3 Ragged Ritual or Ragged Records of Right, where you just reveal a ritual spell in your hand or in your deck to add a monster that mentions the ritual spell from your deck to your hand, which is absolutely crazy because most of the time you're just searching out Griffo or even Black Chaos if you already have the Griffo. So overall, the card's really good, and to pair with it, I am running the 2 Light and Darkness Ritual because I don't really want to only have one and lose out on a lot of advantage, because a lot of times I do rotate through 2 of them during the first turn if it is needed. This allows you to ritual summon your 2 big monsters by using monsters from your hand or field, but also one of the great things about this card, you can also banish monsters from your graveyard whose level equal or exceeds the level, which is absolutely crazy, just being able to use your graveyard. So if you have cards like your Faras in there, or even used up Fuoloses, you could just banish those for literal free. I think last night I used Fallen of the White Dragon and a Fuolos to summon it, which was crazy to think about that is a thing that you could do. And also, while it's in the graveyard, you can use the effect to return it and another monster that mentions Ritual Light and Darkness from your graveyard. Non-targeting recursion is absolutely broken, so they have to hit it with a ghost spell, which is insane to think about, because DD Crow, and if you go against DD Crow and you have multiple targets in your graveyard, it's not really going to work out in your favor. After that, we have the branded spells. Branded in High Spirits is absolutely amazing. This card definitely works with a lot of the cards in the deck, especially cards like Farah, because you could send a spellcaster. You have the Archfiend, your Skull Archfiend, you could send a Fiend, or you could, if you really need to, you could send another spellcaster with a Black Chaos, or if you draw into a Harmonia, or even your Fuolos. These are all potential starters with it, which is absolutely crazy, because you could send Rinbrum, you could send Albion, Despian Quiritis, your Grand Guigonol. So overall, Branded in High Spirits is one of the best starters in the deck, because it gets to your Fallen of the White Dragon, and it just makes it where you can start your plays much easier. And since it's a quick play spell, you can play around Droll and Lockbird. After that, we have two of the Fallen of the Virtuous. This card is absolutely amazing, being able to target a card on the field and send a monster that mentions the Fallen of Albaz from your extra to the graveyard to destroy something, or if you have an Ecclesia monster in your graveyard, you could just pop a card or reborn something from the graveyard by targeting it, which did come up against Mitsurugi, where you could just reborn their Habakiri, their Habakiri if it was properly summoned, or even their Murakumo if it was properly summoned. So if you summon that, you can nuke the board, or you give them the attack debuff, which is honestly really great. And I only run two because it's highly recyclable thanks to the Magician of Dark Chaos and also your Skull Archfiend. So overall, 2 is perfect for me, and I would not play more than that. After that, we have the Super Polymerization. This card is absolutely amazing, even though I didn't activate it a single time. Most of the time when I would go into it, I already had game on board, and honestly, this card is just, let's just say, a really good card, but especially in this deck, you do have a few targets you can run. It's great into the branded matchup because you could just fuse away their Albaz or Fallen of the White Dragon into one of your many fusion monsters that you have. And on top of that, we do have the Call by the Grave and Triple Tactics talent, because honestly, more spell cards that you could return off your Magician of Black Chaos, Dark Chaos, is absolutely amazing. So a lot of times you can just summon this out and use the effect. If you're ready to use Call by the Grave, you could grab it back to the hand, or you can grab the talents back to the hand, which is honestly so crazy that you have just another way to use Call by the Grave going first if you really need it to out another hand trap. Like, sometimes you can use this against Ghost Ogre and then summon out Magician, use the effect to grab back, and then just have another safeguard, which is insane to think about. And then finally, for the final cards in the main deck, we have the 2 Mind Shuffle. This card allows you to add a monster that mentions Ritual Light of Darkness from your deck to your hand and discard a card, which is most of the time you're going to be searching out a copy of your Chaos Skull, your Skull Archfiend of Chaos to discard it to send your ritual spell to add one of your ritual monsters. Or if you need, you can search out other cards like the Griffo if needed, or Black Chaos, or one of your ritual monsters, just depending on what you need. Most of the time I was searching out the Archfiend or even the copy of Black Chaos. But there was one time when I had the Archfiend of Chaos in the graveyard that I wanted to search into a Celtic Mystic so I can go into a Chaos Angel myself. Overall, that was the main deck at 41 cards, so let's get into the extra deck, which I don't think I sorted at all. So, to get out of the way, the Super Polymerization target, we do have the 1 Garura, Wings of Resonant Life. This card's absolutely amazing, and honestly one of the better ones to just have in general. So for the fusions for Albaz, we have the dragon that devours the Dogma, 1 Mirror Jade, 1 Albion, 1 Grand Gorgonol, 1 Despian Quiritis, and 1 Rinbrum, which it's all off screen. So this is my lineup that I used for the whole entire branded package, which is honestly very nice. Most of the time you're sending Albion and also sending the Quiritis because Branded of High Spirit, or Fallen of the Virtuous. If you use Fallen of the Virtuous, most of the time you're going to be sending Albion and even something like Rinbrum or Dragon, because gaining a lot of additional value is really good, and realistically, I definitely think that this is going to be the lineup that I'm going to be playing for quite some time. Now, on top of these, we do have a few additions to the whole entire segment here, because the great thing is with Grand Guganol, I do have two targets for it, being the Quiritis, but you also have the Despian Lulu while Lilith, because honestly, it's just really good just to have, as it's a 2500 beat stick that can make all monsters you control gain 500 if a if a card leaves the extra deck, which is honestly great, and it negates one face-up card on the field until the end of the turn, and during the end phase that this card's in the graveyard, you can special summon a light spellcaster monster from your hand or deck whose level or whose attack equal its own defense. And guess who is a spellcaster monster that equals its attack and defense? You have your Ecclesia, which is honestly great, and I wish it would be able to summon out dark ones as well, but it is what it is. So just being able to have a way to get into Ecclesia is honestly good if you only opened up a way to send this to the graveyard. And also on top of that, we do have the one Ecclesia and the Dark Dragon, because it allows you just to have another form of removal if you send it off the Fallen of the Virtuous, or just be a way to get into banishing it to summon out a monster, a Fallen of Albez, or a level 4 monster that mentions it. So it's another way to get into the Fallen White Dragon and also get into Ecclesia if you really need it. And finally, we have the 3 Champion Sword Soul for the whole entire branded side of the deck. Now, this card on the Synchro Summon allows you to add a level 4 or 8 spellcaster monster that has attack that equals its own defense. So most of the time you can either search out your Ecclesia, once again, or you can search out Farah because she is a spellcaster that has 2800 attack and defense. So it's just more ways to get into this card specifically, and I would just keep it that way. Now, she does have the additional effect that you can target a face-up card on the field, negate its effects, and then if an Ecclesia or Fallen Albaz in your graveyard, you can destroy that card. So it's just a free way to have removal, but it is not a quick effect, which is sad, but it's fine because removal is removal. Just more ways for the targeting removal, so you can target and destroy in the mirror match their ritual monsters, which is honestly good if you already baited out a way for their mind shuffle during the chain. Honestly, just being able to bait out Mind Shuffle with this card is actually just great, because you can just go effect target their ritual monster, and then if you already have a Fallen of the Virtuous in hand, they return the ritual monster and use Fallen of the Virtuous to pop the Mind Scan. So overall, it definitely makes your opponent lose value. And now for the Synchro monsters, we have the one Chaos Angel. Overall, very, very good and overperformed, even when I took it from the opponent. Then we have the one Igni Master Packbit and the one Golden Dragon Malong. Being able to push a monster to the spell and trap card zone as a continuous trap is really good. And just being able to have a way to compulse a monster is absolutely great. This is just compulse in the modern era thanks to Harmonia, so that's crazy to think about. Packbit could have came up to be Synchro Summoned, but I would rather just go into either the Champion Sword Soul, the Ecclesia, or this next card that we're going to be talking about, which is the Crimson King. This card is the one that you can synchro into to search out the Soul Resonator, which is honestly really good to have, just in case, as a way to have another way to get into the Griffo. And what you could do is that if you have like a level 5, 6, or 7 in the graveyard, and you ritual summon, you can tribute this card off and just have a free way to get into one of your monsters. Overall, this card I barely summon, but there is one tech just for Enneacraft, which happens to be the other reason that you could just, if they activate I think it's just when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you could tribute this card to summon out a Red Dragon Archfiend, and the attack becomes double, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So what you could do if you're going against Enneacraft, you could summon this card instead of this, and just go into damage step attack. The monster just blows, all their monsters just blow up, which is absolutely crazy. So you attack their monsters that are face down, gets just nuked off the board. And since it's at the start of the damage step, nothing can really activate outside of modulation of the attack or negation of modulations. So I think that's the only thing. The damage step is just very wonky, but this card always wins out against Enneacraft but sadly there was no any craft players at my locals this past last night. So after that, all we have left to cover is the lovely, lovely side deck. Now, this was a side deck that I crafted just by looking at top lists and thinking what is a good thing, and I would like to shout out my friend Rum because he helped me with the side deck a little. And first off, we're going to have the 3 Santa Claus. This card I definitely really like. It could be a kaiju if you really want, but just being able to special summon this card on your opponent's field, tributing over a Light and Darkness ritual, or a boss monster that is one of the extra deck monsters, which is really good. It did come up against the mirror match because I went against 2 Ritual Light and Darkness Red Dragon Archfiend builds, and just threw this at one of them, just tributing over their big boss monster, which is honestly really funny, even though that they kaiju'd me in the next game, but it really didn't matter because I already had all my advantage set up. So after that, we have the 2 Droll Lockbird. Droll Lockbird is absolutely essential, even though I don't think I used it once. So it's still a side deck card, and honestly, in this format, I would like to keep it in the side deck for now. After that, we have the 1 Heartbeat Feather Duster. Very good spell and trap card, board breaker, along with the Illusion Gate being paying 5 or half your life points to destroy as many possible cards or monsters your opponent controls, just to reborn one from their graveyard, which is honestly really good, especially in the mirror match, because you could summon out things like the Celtic Mystic, or even to get out any of the synchro monsters that they summoned on their turn, so you have an additional body. But honestly, I used this against my opponent, and I summoned back a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, which was absolutely nuts to think about that you could do. So overall, having that there is great, and the more ways to access it happens to be 2 copies of Pot of Sloth. Now, this card allows you to draw cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, and if you drew 2 or more cards, you place back cards that you drew equal to the amount -1. So if you drew 3, you put back 2, or if they control 1, it's just an upstart goblin at that point. This card only came up, actually I only drew it once because most of the time I did side it in, going second in game 2. And honestly, this card is absolutely nuts, and I definitely think it's going to be one of the best chases that a lot of players are going to be wanting, especially if it's in the winner's pack for this season. And then finally, let's get into the trap cards of the deck, and we have 3 of the evenly matched, because this card's absolutely insane against a lot of the top decks like Branded, Ritual Light and Darkness, and even against Cool Tune. Being able to banish almost all but 1 card on the field is absolutely insane, and I wish in this deck there was a way that you could just send it off the field for cost with an effect in hand, but that would be way too broken. But one of the things that you could do is, I'm going to go back to this, with Farah. If you drew it to evenly matched and you go Farah effect reveal evenly, the evenly becomes unresponsible, or unresponsible unresponsive, so neither player can activate cards or effects to the evenly matched. So Farah, this is one of the main reasons. Even though siding, I usually side out a copy just in case, because I want to see more of my other non-engine over other cards, so there's that. And then finally, after that, just being able to wipe the board as a board breaker is absolutely insane. And also against Ritual Light and Darkness, this makes a player vanish, not affecting the cards, it affects the player, so it gets around a lot of their cards and their abilities, which is absolutely great to think about. And then finally, we have the small solemn brigade of 1 Solemn Judgment and 2 Solemn Accusation. Now, if we had more slots, I would definitely be playing another Solemn Accusation, but against my final round opponent, I went up against Mitsurugi, and I flipped it on their ritual, and it just went downhill from there for them, because they lost out on one of their main resources. I already had a lot of different interruptions that could just stop the opponent, and honestly, what do I think that I missed from this deck? Well, honestly, I was originally running Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, and realistically, the card is alright still, but it definitely takes up a lot of slot that you could put into different non-engine currently, and that's where I got to have room for some of these additional cards, like the second Farah, or just being able to play the 1 Celtic Mystic. So this is where 2 Ash Blossoms would be, but having additional engine and non-engine that can give you advantage is honestly amazing just to have. But this has been my deck profile for my Undefeated Ritual Light Darkness deck, and I hope you guys did enjoy, because honestly, I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. Being able to play it finally is just great, and I do have the appropriate tokens for it, which is absolutely crazy to think about, having the Yu-Gi-Oh Day token and also the Aluber token just for this deck. But anyways, I've been BoltSpider. I hope you guys did enjoy this deck profile, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button as well, and to get notified whenever I upload, hit that bell too. And I would like to thank my channel members FGH, Mega Man Wins 2016, and Ronald Arnett Jr. 3938 for supporting the channel and becoming a channel member. And if you want to join the Discord server, it is down in the description below of each video. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video, and goodbye.